Sorry, that was a short break. We have to wait for Councilman Frizzalone, who's having a little...
And Mr. Booker, too.
Mr. Booker, too? Okay. I'll recall it. For those of you that are just joining us right now, I apologize for the little bit of delay. We had a workshop that I wanted to end at 5:45. It went over a couple of minutes, so I apologize. Let me take this off. Okay, so now I will officially call to order our January 26, 2021 City Council meeting in Daytona Beach Shores. Sherry, can you do a roll call, please?
Mayor Miller,
Present.
Vice Mayor Lindauer,
Here.
Councilmember Bryan,
Here.
Councilmember Frizzalone,
Here.
Councilmember Place.
Here.
Thank you. Reverend Bob? I'm used to seeing you front and center. Reverend Bob from our Driving Christian Church, a wonderful partner to our city.
Thank you. I invite you to stand as you're able and join me in this invocation. O God of creation, we come in the midst of the beauty of the creation that you have given us as a gift, and we are thankful. Thankful for your care and your love in our lives. Thankful for bringing us together as neighbors and citizens to conduct the business of this city. We continue tonight to pray for our nation, for the trials and the tribulations that we have been through and the challenges we face. Grant us your grace. We ask your care be with those who have been affected by COVID-19 and the effects of the coronavirus, whether it be family members or themselves. Be with them. We thank you for signs of hope that we see with a vaccine and the distribution that is happening. May this be an effective process in the days and weeks and months ahead. Guide and inspire leaders and elected officials at every level of government, and particularly be with these leaders and citizens who have come here tonight. Grant us courage to face the challenges ahead, relying upon your wisdom, and grant us peace to deal with each other as you command, with love and dignity. For this is our prayer in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend Bob. This evening, we do not have any presentations or public notices, so I'm going to move right on to the approval of minutes. Do I get a motion for City Council minutes, January 12th, 2021?
I move to accept the minutes.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Sherry, can you take a roll on that, please?
Yes, ma'am. Councilmember Place,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindauer,
Yes.
Councilmember Frizzalone,
Yes.
Councilmember Bryan,
Yes.
Mayor Miller.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, on the consent agenda, we have 2 items. Do I hear a motion that we can accept as is, or do we need one of the items pulled?
Motion to accept as is. I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on those items? Okay, if not, Sherry, can you take a roll on that, please?
Councilmember Frizzalone,
Yes.
Councilmember Place,
Yes.
Councilmember Bryan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindauer,
Yes.
Mayor Miller.
Yes, thank you, Sherry. Attorney Carey, what report do you have for us today, please?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. For tonight's attorney report, I have a few different items. The first one being The standard contract addendum, I updated it to include some provisions that are required by recent changes of the legislature. This is an addendum that we attach to contracts that we get from vendors whenever we need to ensure that the city's interest as a governmental agency is met. Drafted an ethics legal opinion about a new administrative rule that had come down that we got word of to, and essentially the gist of it is that the new rule doesn't really change substantive law, it's just implementing law that is already existing. And began work drafting an agreement for economic development grant for Daytona electric bikes, which you'll be seeing sometime in the near future. Perhaps at the next meeting if Nancy believes we're ready to bring it to you. And that's all I have.
Any questions for Attorney Carey?
Yeah, John, have you or anybody in your firm looked at regulating electric bikes or scooters?
Yes, I have. I can tell you it's a kind of complicated arena with a lot of different laws that sometimes compete and sometimes seem to diametrically oppose one another. And there are also a lot of other things that factor into play, such as whether we control the streets or whether it's a DOT right-of-way. So creating a uniform rule can be difficult and sticky, but it's something I've done before for other jurisdictions, and if that's something that you would like to give me direction to work on, I'd need a little bit more direction than just an ordinance, because you could do a lot of different things with it. But you know, that's certainly something that we're capable of doing if that's the will of the council.
This organization probably does business where there are ordinances, I would imagine.
Okay. I'm not sure I understand the context of.
No, I'm just saying those cities where they're doing business that do have ordinances, it may be worth taking a look at those ordinances.
Yeah, are you talking about for like a scooter rental?
Scooters in general.
Yeah, and that's something we've talked about with staff. We talked about it probably a couple of months ago with Mike and Fred. And so it's certainly been on our radar. I'm not sure if staff has any, recent contacts with the company or if they're still looking at coming into the city or not, but it's certainly something that's been on our radar.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Attorney Carey?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Bryant, there is law firms that handle lawsuits for people that get injured on those electric scooters. And in some instances, they try and go after the deep pocket, the city. There are things that I'm sure our city attorney are going to look into before there's any recommendation, either giving a grant or somehow participating in trying to create an ordinance. Because you have all kinds of stuff, hold harmless, you have insurance policies, yada, yada, yada. So it's way, way premature before, one, we look at the grant, number two, approve it, and three, go to the next level of putting an ordinance together, because we have to be careful what's going on and what the trend is.
You fleshed it out more than I did. I think we need to make sure we have all our ducks in a row.
Our city attorney is sharp cookie, he'll look out for us.
Well, so, if you want me to go into a little more detail, one of the things that we probably would need to do is create an ordinance allowing a franchise for the vehicles, and then the franchise would be a vehicle to create a lot of the limitations and hopefully limitations of liability. And then once you have the franchise agreement, you would need a more general ordinance for operation of the vehicles. And so.
Ask a question, why do we even want them?
I wouldn't do it.
Why do we even want them? Why are we even talking about this?
Because it was asked of me.
By who? By who?
I believe that it was asked by Councilmember Bryan, unless I misunderstood it.
No, why do we even want motor scooters running around?
Scooters. So she's talking about when we.
They're already here.
No, but we're talking about a grant for
Yeah,
somebody?
well,
Why
no,
would-
like I said, it's premature.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's not premature because the Economic Development Group has already met with the owners of this. So
Well, why do we want scooters running around the city?
I I don't have an opinion on that. I am concerned about even the scooters. We're talking about electric bikes here, but the scooters, you got these kids going up and down, but I was told that we can't regulate them. So if that's not correct, then let's think about some kind of a situation where we can control these kids that are going up and down.
I think it's a very slippery slope. There's no way I would approve that.
So
I can
Attorney,
tell you right now, that's crazy.
so Attorney Carey, is this where we stand right now, that you can rent a scooter in Daytona, but drive it in the shores and there's nothing that we can do? Or explain to me how that works.
Yeah, so there's a state law, the state motor vehicle law, it's chapter 316, that preempts a lot of the traffic issues to the state, meaning that the city can't create its own traffic laws essentially. And for scooters that are considered street legal, we can't create an ordinance that would completely prevent them from operating within the city, because that's preempted to the state.
I don't know if these are on the street. Where I see them is on the sidewalk. Is that the same thing?
And the beach.
So the use on the sidewalks is an area that you probably could regulate, but then you get into the issue of, well, we don't really control the sidewalks on A1A, which is probably where the vast majority of them would be operating. That's, again, controlled by the state. So we really need to work with state DOT to see if we would need to regulate those sidewalks.
John, it's like a car franchise or a rental. I mean, you're not going to stop Avis from renting cars, or you're not going to stop somebody from in Daytona or DeLand or wherever to do motor scooters if they want to drive here. I mean, it's America. Having said that, we don't have to help enable it.
Right.
What about some of these drop-off locations I'm seeing, maybe in front of ice cream place, and I can't even remember, I see, but 10 to 12 dropped off at a time. Do we have any say-so about drop-off points in the shores?
So we can obviously, we could collect, theoretically anyhow, collect the vehicles if they're an obstruction to a public street. That would have to be a determination that would be made by the safety officers to determine if it's obstructing the street, and then they could remove it and impound it, I suppose, and then the companies would have to come to the city to get them back.
In all honesty, from what I'm seeing, and this is me speaking again, I don't see them blocking a street or anything. I see them, maybe leaning up against one of the buildings. Yeah, but Fred?
I just wanted to say, as another alternative, I mean, to deal with the immediacy of it, we can cite the business owners that are allowing those scooters to be displayed out in front of their place of business. It's technically not allowed.
All I'm saying is, I mean, we have an older population for sure. I mean, this is a senior community. People want to have fresh air. They want to walk. You've got enough problems with Publix and crosswalks. And now we're going to have, 17, 16-year-old kids running around, zipping up and down the street. I just, again, we might not be able to prevent anybody renting in Daytona to come here, but we certainly don't have to enable it in the shores. I just think.
Along that line, I think Fred's suggestion is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll do it. We'll do it.
Okay, yeah.
And on top of that, we could still have some kind of ordinance. I know Daytona has an ordinance, because it is really a safety.
Safety, especially for our citizens, the age of our citizens. John, I really would, listen, there's nobody better than you. So just really protect us. I mean, the last thing somebody wants to do is be walking down the street carrying, and they do. You see it all the time. They go to Publix and they carry, and God bless them, they carry their bags and they go to their condo and they're on the street. The last thing you want is somebody zipping past them, knocking them down.
I'm here to enact whatever policy that you direct me to.
Maybe we can put that, can we put that on the next agenda, Fred, and you check into, I think that would deter them. If they have no place to drop them off in the shores, why are they going to come here?
It's a great idea.
We don't have to put it on it's up to you certainly if you want it on the agenda, but as far as enforcing it, we have a land development code violation that you can't display that type of merchandise, that type of stuff outside. So it's just a matter of us going to the businesses and telling them they need to get rid of them. That'd be our first order of business. If they don't comply, then we'll cite them with an official notice of violation and take them through the special magistrate.
Okay. And no time limit, right? So even if they're there 3-4 hours?
What do you mean?
So if they're laying on the side of the building 3 or 4 hours, it's not like an overnight or anything. We can cite them if we see them there at all. Is that correct?
Yes, the only
Okay.
business that possibly could be is Boogie Downs, which has a special exception to rent that kind of stuff. But we could still approach them from an outdoor display perspective, but they could do it from inside potentially.
Okay, great, thank you.
Well, Fred, for what it's worth, when the tide's up, I walk on the street, and I'm seeing more and more of these drop-off points where there are 3, 4, or 5. And the other thing, to Councilman Frizzolone's point, again, when I'm walking on the street, a lot of these kids come by, zipping by. I'm pretty agile. I can move around. I can get out of the way. But when they come up from behind you, and they're not really adults that are used to driving and maneuvering, they don't know how to get around people on the sidewalk. And heaven forbid if it's one of the people who can't really move as fast as I can. That's a concern of mine. But when I brought it up before, I was told that we can't regulate the streets. So it sounded like a dead end, but now it doesn't sound like it really is a dead end where you can control the drop-off points.
So Fred, you'll check into that for us?
And Fred, aren't there some businesses that actually rent them in the stores?
I don't know what the arrangement is with the businesses. I know that they obviously have an arrangement with the scooter place to allow them to put them out in front of their place of business. And then, the way they operate from your cell phone, so you don't even have to rent them from the business. You have an app on your phone and you go up to the scooter and then you punch in whatever and then you take off on it and then you leave it wherever you want to leave it. You can leave it anywhere. You can leave it in the middle of the sidewalk. But that's the way that they're operating. But I think if we go after the businesses, at least until such time, simultaneously we may be wanting to work on an ordinance that could ban them wherever. But I definitely think that would cut a lot of it down if we don't allow them to display them in front of the businesses.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Bryan, for asking the question. Yeah. Okay, if there's no other questions, thank you very much, Attorney Carey. Mike Booker, our city manager, report, please.
The last meeting of City Council, Madam Mayor, I brought up the possibility of doing a pedestrian overpass city logo at the Shores Resort Spa. I did get a ballpark cost on that, and to do both sides of that overpass would be about $20,000. And I'm thinking just the way the logo looked, the lion's share of that would fall with the city. Okay. If you guys choose to do it. COVID-19 vaccinations, as of this writing and as of the writing it changed, Volusia County had 4,300 vaccines. I understand they lost 2,000 to Publix, where Publix throughout the county was taking some of those vaccines. I do want to reiterate that the State Department of Health is in charge of vaccination distribution. I know council gets a lot of calls. We get a lot of calls every day. The county is only involved in site selection, not vaccination acquisition. Cities have submitted sites that may be appropriate for use. And one of the sites that we submitted was the Drop-In Christian Church, which I think would be an excellent location if the county chooses to use that. Publix crosswalk, it appears that the repairs to Publix crosswalk actually have been done. As one of the busiest crosswalks in the Shores, we were very anxious to see it finished, and I think it took about a month or so to get done. One thing that's not on my report, Madam Mayor, and you and I and our finance director, Kurt Schwartzlander, participated in a phone call with FPL today. FPL has a program to provide electric vehicle chargers at no cost to the cities. It's a credit card operated or card operated mechanism whereby people can pay to have their cars recharged. We're going to look at maybe doing a couple of those at the community center right there.
And those were the fast charge.
They were fast. They have some regular, but I think they were really looking at the fast charge, which is 30 minutes, I believe.
Okay. And if we want to state it right now, when we first put in that one there, it was not our intent really for that ever to be no charge. But we had our community service director, Fred Hyatt, checked into it, and we actually were not paying that much. So we went ahead for the time being to not charge any residents or tourists there. With these other ones, though, we'll probably start out right from the beginning. There's a card program that you can get, and then it's up to you whether you want to pay for the slow charge or the fast charge. I equate it to when we lived in Atlanta. Either you trudge along in the traffic, or you pay for the HOV lane that you zoom along. So you'll have the choice of doing that. So, but there'll be no cost to the city.
No cost to the city. Interestingly, their projections are that by 2029, I believe 25% of all vehicles will be electric. Obviously, we don't want to provide free electricity for that many vehicles, so we probably need to look at our program as well. But I think it's going to get to the point where you can recharge an electric vehicle just like you fill up with gas. I mean, it'll take about 5 minutes.
And have we decided, have we decided then that we will have them come to our meeting, the first meeting in February, and on the 9th, and they'll do the presentation?
Yeah, I think council should hear that and make a decision after they hear what they have to say. But it's no cost to the city.
And the lead time was about 6 months, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, great. Was there any other questions on,
Yeah, on the overpass, it's more than just the logo, right?
I'm sorry.
we had the markup
On the
issue.
overpass, it's more than just the logo, isn't it?
Well, it's Daytona Beach Shores, Life is Better Here with our logo on the left. I believe the Shores Resort Spa logo on the right.
The markup was in our last
Yeah, I
agenda.
know, I didn't remember.
So it looked just like,
Would it be possible to say something like life is better here and we enforce speed limits? Might as well put a little safety thing in too.
okay, as our city manager talked about vaccines, one of the things I want to talk to is some kind of program, Adopt Your Neighbor. I have been getting so many calls from people that are up in their age that might have computers, but they're not that savvy, they're not that quick, and they're not able to get in, because most of these for the vaccines at Publix and the Volusia County Fairgrounds, and those, as far as I know, are the only two that are currently available to us. It takes a lot of patience to get in there. So if there's older people in your condo and you know that they desperately want the vaccine, reach out to them and maybe get their information and say, I'll try one day for you too. So it's just something I thought about in speaking to some of the people that just are desperately needing them. And I wish there's some way that that I could get online for every one of them. So if you could please do that, I'd appreciate it. Any other questions for our city manager? Okay, if not, we're going to go on to old business, the Economic Development Ordinance. This is a second reading, is that correct?
That is
Can you read
correct.
that for us, please?
This is ordinance 2021-01, an ordinance of the city of Daytona Beach Shores, Florida, relating to a comprehensive economic development program, providing for legislative findings and intent, amending the requirements to receive a grant, eliminating certain grant programs, making minor technical amendments, making findings, providing for conflicts, severability, codification, and effective date. And this is a public hearing.
Thank you. Since this is a public hearing, is there anyone that wants to speak on this topic? Okay, seeing no one, I believe we passed this unanimous on the first reading, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so do I hear a motion to accept this ordinance?
I so move.
I second it.
All right. Any discussion on this? I think we discussed it quite in detail last month, but if there's any other discussion items? If not, Sherry, can you take a roll on this, please?
Councilmember Bryan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindauer,
Yes.
Councilmember Politis,
Yes.
Councilmember Frislow,
Yes.
Mayor Miller.
Yes, thank you. Okay, now we're going to move on to new business. Now, is this the one, do we have a guest speaker on this? We do? Okay, all right. If our guest speaker on this would like to come forward and introduce yourself, and this is the handout that we have here on the First Step Shelter, is that correct?
Hi, thank you for letting me come and speak to you today. My name is Victoria Fallberg. I'm the Executive Director of First Step Shelter in Daytona Beach. And I have requested this opportunity to tell you about the shelter and also to help you make a decision about whether you would like to participate with the shelter. And I just want to say that yesterday morning, I don't know if you are aware of this, it's been in the papers, but we lost a resident. And it has been like probably the 2 most difficult days since I've been out there. There's just so much going on. And I think for a lot of the residents, a lot of the residents are pretty unhealthy and death is like staring them down all the time. And when this happened, it just had a really sort of wave. So I'm not on the top of my game, but I'm going to do the best that I can.
Thank you.
So one of the things that I've been doing since last August is keeping demographic information that we had not been keeping since the beginning of the year. We work with a really difficult population, and I think it's really important. I want people to understand what we're dealing with. So in our population that we've been working with since last August, we've had 45% of our people with drug addiction, 36% with alcohol addiction, 71% of our people have been on psychotropic medication, 66% with chronic illnesses. These are things like diabetes, COPD, hypertension, asthma, and then a lot of just people with other disabilities where they can't even hardly walk. And then 66% of our people, which is pretty much all of the people with a chronic disability, are also on psychotropic medication. So it's a handful, and that's just an idea of like what our population demographics are like. We have had some really great successes. I'm not going to spend your time talking about that, but we have had some really good successes with different people at the shelter. Over the course of the last year, we've been able to put 65 people into housing, and that's out of 155 people who have come into the shelter and out, which we believe is a really good job because of the type of people that we're working with. A lot of people end up not being able to follow through because of their, primarily because of their addictions. People who only have the mental health aspects or even the physical health aspects, we have been more likely to be able to help. People who are just really in the grip of those addictions, a lot of times no matter what they're, how well they want to do, they have a difficult time. So what we do at the shelter is we are a shelter that is focused on putting people into housing. The goal of the board is to get people completely off, they want people off the streets. So what we're not is a place where people can come, get a meal, get a shower, hang out, maybe sleep, and then go back on the street. That's not what we do. We are into getting people stabilized, get them the services they need, and then get them into housing. So that includes things like when people come to us, a lot of people don't have any kind of identification, so we can't even start on getting them services of other kinds or a job, because if they don't even have a birth certificate, they don't have a social security card. So there's this whole process we have to go through. As I mentioned, a lot of them have all kinds of health needs. We also get people who, when they enter the shelter, they're psychotic. And so we get them the medication that they need. Because actually, that's one of the things that's been more amazing and impressive to me. But once people get on the right psychotropic medications, they are able to stabilize and then actually be able to become productive people. Some people, we need to get them disability. We have to apply for disability because they are just not capable of working. And some people are over the age of 65, and if they do have a work history, which most of them do have a history, we are able to give them Social Security. And for the other ones, we have them get employment. And so those are the steps that we bring people through, because you have to have some kind of an income before you can go into housing. There is no housing available if there is no income of any kind. So in our first year, we housed 65 people. We've helped 57 people get jobs. We've helped 52 other residents get Social Security or disability. We've also looked at health insurance, which includes Medicaid, Medicare, or other insurances that people might be available to receive. 61% we've had to start at the beginning with birth certificates, and 80 residents we've helped with food stamps. Food stamps is actually the gateway into being able to get other federal services, which is something that I wasn't aware of before we started all this. But if you want to get disability, for example, you have to start with, if you apply for food stamps and you qualify for that, then you're able to move on to the next step. We do work with a lot of community partners, the Department of Public Health, the Coalition on Homelessness, Career Source, Daytona State College. We've done different GED programs. We had gotten going and doing a lot of things before COVID hit, and then once COVID hit, they shut down, and like with AA and NA, they didn't want to come into the center anymore. So that continues to be a struggle during this time period. But we are still working with these partners. Our referrals are broken down more or less by 34% from social services and places of worship, 21% from Advent, Health, or Halifax, and 45%, which is the primary way that we receive referrals, is through law enforcement. So our referral process, and one of your handouts is actually the referral form. This is the referral form for the Safe Zone. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but the referral forms are basically identical. So the only difference is on this one, we're asking where have people been living for the past few months. Because it's our goal to try to track, so the homeless population is very fluid and transient. They move from one community to the next community. If they get run out of one place, they end up someplace else. And so, and in fact, you're probably aware that a lot of people from out of state actually come to Florida because it's a nice place to live. So we get people from all over, and we are trying to track that a little bit better with our Safe Zone. But basically, the ways that people get in through the referral process is we'll take in anybody pretty much as long as they're not so infirm that they would be there permanently. So that is something that we've also been trying to figure out a strategy for, but there are many homeless people that really need to be in a nursing home or in an assisted living because they're not ever going to be leaving those places if they go there. And that's not really what the goal is for First Step Shelter. Our goal is to get people into housing. So that's been kind of something we've been trying to work out because it's also really pretty horrible to tell somebody who really needs a place to live that they can't. So that's kind of a catch-22, but that is something that we're working on, and that's one of our concerns. But also, if a person, they have to want to come, so just because they get a referral or if law enforcement brings them, I mean, if they don't want to be there, we do have rules. And that's a complaint we get by a lot of people is, there are people who are used to living without rules. That's one of the reasons they're on the street. And we have rules and we do enforce them. So that can be another reason. So we talk to them. If people are so psychotic we cannot deal with them at all, then we have them go first over to SMA crisis, where they need to be hospitalized until they're stable enough that we can take them. And same thing that if they're so infirm that they need a hospital, then we say, whoever's referring them is like, you got to take this person to a hospital first. And then basically we take pretty much everybody else. So this is our Roseanne Tornator Safe Zone. Roseanne Tornator, who's here, she's a member of your community. She is a member of my board of directors, and she made this wonderful donation so that we were able to build a safe zone. It was completed November 23rd, and it's been open and running ever since then. So the Safe Zone is a place that law enforcement from any of the participating communities can use the shelter anytime they want to make a referral to their law enforcement or any of the agencies. But the Safe Zone is a special place where if there's people that just are like chronically living on the street, it has made the participating communities what they call Pottinger compliant. So what that does is it allows the law enforcement, instead of taking people and arresting them and putting them in jail, they can give them an alternative to come up here and spend the night in the Safe Zone. So that was the main purpose of building the shelter, is so that everybody could be Pottinger compliant. And so the way that the shelter works is that we take whatever referrals come our way. Again, though, if a person is so psychotic that they cannot be in population with other people, they have to go to SMA. If they are so ill they can't stand up, I mean, then they need to go to a hospital. And those are the primary considerations with the safe zone. It's really the same as the shelter. And the law enforcement can bring them any time of the day or night, 24/7. Then every morning at 9 a.m., the safe zone people who are in there, they leave the shelter. We give them a bus pass to return back to wherever they want to go. And we also give them a meal. So that's the way that the safe zone functions. And this is the interior of the safe zone. We have space for up to 24 people in the safe zone. We also been using this as what they call a cold weather shelter. So when it gets really cold, it drops below 40 degrees, the county likes to try to put people somewhere where they don't basically freeze to death. And so we've had to bring in special heaters to do the cold weather shelter because it's still outdoors. We are in the process of building a partition inside the shelter so that next year when that's built, we'll be able to bring them actually inside the shelter. But for right now, especially with COVID, we can't bring them in the shelter and mix the populations because this population of people, so for the shelter, to get into the shelter, people have to go through a quarantine time period. We work with the Department of Public Health. They provide the testing, and then they provide us back with the results. And so we have a space over at the shelter where we quarantine people until we get the testing back. The safe zone, there is no quarantining. People just come and go. So this is how we've been using the safe zone since it opened in November. We've had 31 people. Well, that was only till the end of December. It's actually really ramped up in January. When I left the shelter today, we had about 8 people out there. So we've had 23, this is as of the end of December, and again, that was only after about a month of functioning. But we had 23 from Daytona Beach, 7 from Holly Hill, and 1 from Volusia County. And we have 58 people who've used the safe zone as a cold weather shelter. And I think I just already went through this, so I'm not going to go through it again. And then that's it. So I'm really grateful for your time, and I'm really happy if anybody has any questions that I can help answer.
Can I just ask you, looking on here, so I see right now that from Daytona Beach Shores, we didn't bring anyone to the safe zone. I'm a little bit surprised, like a city the size maybe of Ormond and Port Orange, why there was none from there. Can you explain that? Do they bring them somewhere else?
Here's so I'm speculating here, right? Because I also have spent time, we've had a police officer who worked as a liaison out at the shelter through the Daytona Beach Police, and I've asked him that exact same question. So one of the things that happens in Daytona Beach, and you can see that there's more from Daytona Beach than anywhere else, and the same thing with residents in the shelter. Their chief of police has a mandate. He is like, you guys have got to be doing this. And most recently, they are talking about having a regular trip up to the shelter twice a week with a car, with like a carload of people. So, but I know that that's what happens in Daytona Beach, is that their police officers have been instructed, they've been trained. And one thing I will say, these forms that I gave you all, your police department has access to these because the liaison, Lieutenant Nicolo, at least that's what he said. He said he set these up for all of the participating communities, and he said that there were officers there that he trained. Now, I'm just telling you what he said, but that is what he told me that he's done with all of them. And so, I don't know if that's what it is. I don't know. Maybe you all don't have a homeless problem. I don't know. So that's just, but when you're asking me about Ormond Beach, that's, where I live, and it's like, I know there's a problem there, and I don't know. But I'm thinking that probably the mandate by the police department, and it also could be maybe a mandate from higher, from the council. I know that Holly Hill has not really used the shelter a lot as for the regular residents, but once we open the safe zone, it's like bang, 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 like they've been there maybe once a day. Not that much, but a lot.
I'd like to ask our chief, we've ever utilized The location, either, have we utilized the location for the actual shelter or the safe zone at all?
The problem that we're running into with the homeless here in the shores is they don't want to go. And the one requirement we've had explained to us was the first step towards putting the first step is that they have to agree to go. And how do I put this? We have some homeless. They like the beach, and I'm not trying to be smart aleck here, but a lot of the people that we're talking to, and because I run into them once in a while, is they don't want to go because it's a long ways out there, and this is where they want to be. If we run into someone that wants to go, we'll take them. It saves us a lot of trouble, but we haven't yet, and that's why you see very few cases out of Ormond or Ponce Inlet or New Smyrna or whatever, because it's
Chief, what do you do with the homeless person who is, in a business or hanging out, or they're at Treasure Island and they're in the backyard or whatever?
Well, if they're trespassing in a business and the business wants them gone, they either leave or they get arrested. Most of the time, they're not doing anything. Port Orange is running into a panhandling issue. We're not yet here, but most of the time they just want to be left alone. And
If
we do in business and they're causing a problem, they'll either get arrested.
If we do run into a panhandling issue, what would you do?
I'm sorry, what?
If we do run into a panhandling issue in the shores, what would you do?
Well, I'm gonna have to bring that up one of these days. We're gonna have to look at the Port Orange ordinance and start thinking about doing that. As Daytona moved them to Port Orange, is Port Orange gonna move them here?
Yeah, we need an ordinance, basically.
Sorry?
We would need an ordinance.
At that time.
Yeah, that's a sort of another issue that I'm not ready to bring it up yet because Port Orange hasn't finished with theirs and I haven't seen what's gonna happen. But we
So
don't.
I take it Port Orange is in the process of doing an ordinance to
Yes.
make sure that the
Yes.
homeless, they pick them up and they move them out.
It's a free country, you can go where you want, but they can make it so that you can only panhandle in certain areas.
Got it.
And right now, that's not an issue in the shores. They don't really feel for the shores that much. Like I said, they just want to be left alone. But I have nothing against, First Step's been great for, like you say, like Jakari and Daytona Beaches. They have a lot of homeless, and they want to move them out there, and some of them want to go for help, like the ladies explained. I wish they all did.
How many beds do you have in the shelter?
So right now, we have 100 beds, but right now, our budget can only support 45.
How many, 45?
Yeah.
Okay. Was this smaller than originally planned?
So I only moved here a few years ago, like so many people who left Florida, right? And I don't know I do know it was supposed to be larger, but I don't know how many, I don't even know if it was actually supposed to have more beds. One thing I know for sure, it was supposed to have some storage, it was supposed to have some classrooms, and I know that those things all got cut off because it's I don't even have a place where the staff can meet together because we don't have any, like all of those spaces got cut out. The administrative area is very small, so I don't know if there was a decision made to have 100 beds and we'll just make everything a dorm and a whatever and leave out all these other spaces, or if it was actually planned to be larger. So I'm not sure. I just want to make one comment. And so one of the things about the safe zone, which is why I think Holly Hill's using that a whole lot more, is that so that's like if the officer, instead of making that as an arrest and putting that person in jail and going through the court system, so one of these things about this is it was set up to prevent the county from all the money that it creates for the officers' work and for the court system and for the jail. So that's why the safe zone is thought of as an alternative. So you can remove the person without going through all of that process. So that's my understanding. I just want to say, I am not an attorney and I am not a police officer. I'm just telling you what I've been told.
Thank you. Chief, did you have another comment?
One of my sergeants just texted me. He said, we actually took 2 people to the safe zone last week. I didn't know about that so like I say, we'll use it if we can, and that's a very good item to bring up.
Madam
Consider the
Mayor,
rest of it.
may I make a few points, please? Bring some stuff. Richard and I were on the city council when Reverend Durham came in and made the pitch for us to get on board. And the goals were ideal. I mean, it was something that really sounded great. We got on board and we made a donation in the beginning. However, you weren't here, but the newspapers were full of politics. Apparently Daytona was ramrodding things, the board, some of the members of the other councils who were on the board quit. So it was not an ideal thing. It was pretty nasty, really. We decided at that point, when they came back for more funding, we decided not to fund it because of all of the inner fighting that was going on. I'm sure you're aware that Catholic Charity used to run it. And
Oh, I was there. I
Say
mean,
again?
so I was hired October 7th of 2019. The shelter opened December 16th of 2019. I was hired to oversee Catholic Charities, and they were there for the first 6 months, and I was there at the same time.
Right.
And so I do know that, you know, I mean, I was there, I saw everything.
Okay, the other thing that we looked at when you came back for additional funding, number one, there were overruns all over the place. But in addition to that, the county is funding a major portion of the, is it maybe 50%? I understand it's $400,000. I understand it's $400,000 a year.
So the shelter budget for 45 residents is $1.37 million, and they're supporting us with $400,000. So it's not even close to half.
Okay, well, my point is this. We, the citizens of this city, pay the county taxes, and the county is supporting you. So it feels to me like we're double dipping. We're paying, and the county's paying, which is also us. For those reasons, and the fact that it just seemed, from everything I read and heard from others, was that Daytona Beach was dominating the thing, and they were saying what was going to work, what wasn't going to work, and asking everybody else to pitch in. So for those reasons, we decided, after the initial money that we donated, we decided not to contribute any further. So that's the background from the city council standpoint, from when this first got started and where we're at now. So I don't think we've contributed since then. I don't even know how it got in the budget because we had made a decision not to fund it any further, but that's neither here nor there, but it's in the budget. I feel responsible to the citizens who pay the taxes, and we're paying taxes to the county, we're just supporting it, and to the city, we're also being asked to support it. And it does not seem like we are getting utilization of it, but that wouldn't matter as much if it didn't, if everything didn't say that this was a Daytona Beach operation and they are running it. So if they want to run it, let them fund it, that's fine.
So
That's just my opinion.
I believe that the last time we paid was $20,000 in 2017.
Yes.
Can you confirm that?
Yeah, and
Correct.
20,000 this year's budget, Vice Mayor Lindauer was correct.
So,
yeah, I just, could I say something?
Certainly.
I just want to say that I was made aware of all the things you're talking about, like after I was there, my first day on the job. And I am still learning things about I don't even know, I don't think the word difficulties really is even strong enough. I'm not really sure what the word is, but it was extraordinarily challenging for everybody involved and for my board of directors. It was extremely challenging. And since the building has been built, we have a contract with the city. It's a lease, but it's a lease contract that explains all of the sort of the rules. And so even though there is still this relationship, because we do rent the building and the space from the city of Daytona Beach, I can tell you that in the year that I have been running the shelter, that the only people that I go to are my board of directors, and I have had nobody in the city telling me what to do about anything. The board of directors still has 4 city council members, one from Bill Lana from Ponce Inlet, Dwight Selby from Mormon Beach, Mayor Henry from Daytona Beach, and Chase Tremont from Port Orange, and then also Roseanne Tornator from Daytona Beach Shores, and Mike Panaggio, who's a businessman from Daytona Beach also, but he's independent of any city council or anything. And so those are the people who have been running the shelter for the last year. And so although the building of the shelter was extremely challenging, as you're saying, it has not been, I mean, it was, and then there were the issues with Catholic Charities. That wasn't good either. But I will tell you that since taking over in August, it's like we took over in the middle of a pandemic. The concerns that were going on with Catholic Charities, it had nothing to do with like how the residents were being treated. It was more like their management. It's been a lot. It was a challenge for me personally to be sort of dropped with all of this, but I'm very proud of the work that we've been doing. I think that it's going really well. I think we'll probably always be criticized from the News Journal. There's something about our shelter. They had an op-ed like just a few months ago, and it like they didn't even call me. There were things in there that weren't even true or they were misleading, but they don't even call me and ask me like these questions like to find out. And that's been disturbing to me, but there's not, it's like I can't really deal with that. I do understand that it can constantly cause this perception, but it's not an adequate perception. That's one of the reasons I was glad to be able to give you the presentation today, because what I see is an adequate description. I am there every day, working hard every day. I do understand the concern about the distance from Daytona Beach Shores. I'm happy to know, I do know that we've had, we had at least one resident early on, like it was before Catholic Charities left from Daytona Beach Shores. At least that's what is in the records. But I was not actually controlling things at that point. But I think that the value for people who live further away is the safe zone. And so, that's the one thing I want to say. But I completely understand that you all need to be responsible to your people, and I can totally support that. We have, I think, at this point, a great shelter. We're changing lives, and we're also facilitating removing people without going through all of what you got to go through to go to jail. That's thanks to our new safe zone. And so I do believe that there's value. If the county actually was paying half, that would be really great. But right now, they're not. And the other thing I'll tell you is I've run organizations before. I've actually started organizations before. And you rarely start out with a business that's already grown up, and people expect you to already be able to bring in 45 people when you haven't had a chance to raise the money, and you haven't had a chance to even hardly get all the procedures and policies in place, which are enormous. When you're dealing with a population like ours, we have to have a rule about everything. And so it's like this constant challenge every day, but we have a great staff who are so dedicated and so committed. So whatever you've read in the past, I have no reason to think that probably wasn't true, but I will tell you that is not true anymore.
And Roseanne, I think you had one final point that you wanted to make. Did you have
to say a couple of things?
Okay, if you want to come up for a couple minutes, and then I guess we'll have a discussion among them.
When we pick somebody else.
Can you say your name and address?
My name is Roseanne Tornator. I live in Daytona Beach Shores. I love it here. 3245 South Atlantic Avenue. I came from very poor. I know what it's like to not have hot water, bathtub, shower all my life. So when I see these people, I think of me and where I came from, okay? So it's really important that $20,000 is so important to us. When we pick somebody up, we don't tell them they have to go into the shelter. We take them to the safe zone, so for that night, they get a nice bed to sleep in, they get water, they get food, they get treated human. And so that's what we're asking you to contribute to. not to anything else. We are working so hard to build affordable housing on that property. We're going to find a way, and this is the beginning. We've had a COVID. We've had a problem. We need your help. We haven't gotten any money from you since 2017. I was outside of Surfside Cafe weeks ago, and I called the sheriff and I said, there's a man here. He hasn't eaten, he hasn't slept. He's sneaking around in the back of hotels. Could you please help me? He called the police. They came and got him, gave him a night's sleep, a bed. That's all we're asking for. And we need your help to do that.
And do we have any discussion here? So Kurt, it's currently in the budget, but now we're deciding if we're going, just clarify what we're doing right now, I'm sorry.
Correct. So I'm going to jump back to something Councilmember Lindauer asked. He said he wasn't sure how it got in the budget. We actually talked about this. We've budgeted every year since 2017 when we made the initial donation. We budgeted every year. But during the workshop, it was discussed, and we said we'd leave it in the budget. But I promised you that I would bring it back if there was ever a request for it to the council. At the time, the big question was, there's no safe zone. That was one of the original, as my understanding from that discussion was, that was one of the original requirements and why we wanted to participate back in 2017. So they met that requirement or request. And so now, based on what I asked, normally, the city manager has authority to pay this, it's budgeted, it's approved in the budget, we would pay it, but because we promised council that we would bring it back for your approval to go ahead and pay this. So, for example, if you pay it this year and we budget it again next year, we probably would not bring that back because it's based on our budget ordinance, it's already budgeted, it's approved in the budget. But this was a unique situation where the council had asked staff to bring it back. And that's what we're doing tonight, bringing it back for your approval or denial.
And I think I do remember that caveat that at the beginning, there was not a safe zone, so we said, you know, how's that gonna benefit anyone? You know, if the chief has a homeless person that chooses to go there and there's no safe zone at that time. So now they did meet that requirement that there is a safe zone. Okay, thank you for answering that. So are we to vote on this evening?
Didn't the city manager look into this, the two shelters and recommend that we not fund one?
No, I did not. There was contention among council as to whether this should be funded or not, and that's why it's coming back to council.
But we did fund the Hope for
We
$15,000.
funded Hope Place, yes,
Yeah.
for $15,000.
Didn't you check with some other cities and you recommended?
There were some others due to lack of the safe zone at that time, they did not. But now they have a safe zone.
Yeah, my question was just gonna be, has something changed since you did?
Yeah, they have a safe zone.
Yeah.
I guess we're ready. Do we need a motion on this, Attorney Carey? Or where are we at on this?
Yes, that would be consistent with procedure.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to go ahead with the $20,000 funding?
I'd like to make a motion to go ahead with the $20,000 funding. We're making comments, it's given COVID, given everything. We need people like you. It's amazing that you actually do what you do. God bless you, because there's very few people that would have the stomach for it and wherewithal. So God bless you. And it's for the shores, there's no direct benefit right now because our public safety does such a marvelous job, working with the community. But God forbid we do have people who come this way. We have a place to take them. And, we know that you'll take good care of them.
I second the motion.
Yeah, I guess what I would like to see is no bad publicity. None of the nasty stories that we've had in the past.
If I could do that, I would.
Let's draw a line in the sand and let's get on the good side and let's see how it works out.
Thank you for coming to speak with us this evening. Any other discussion before we take a vote?
Yes. I have a few questions. I mean, I'm going to vote in favor because it is a worthy organization that you run, but what have other cities given? I'm just curious. How much has Holly Hill given you? How much has Ponce Inlet given you? How much has Port Orange given you? Just out of curiosity.
Okay, so Ponce Inlet every year gives $14,000 and something. Holly Hill, I'm going by memory, so like don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure they give 35. Port Orange gives around 35. Ormond Beach gives 81,000. And
Really?
yes,
What about Daytona Beach that's using the bulk of the services? How much do they give
they
you?
give 400,000 every year. Plus, they give us 400,000 a year. Plus, they give they rent to us for $1 a year. So they give us the building, use of the building.
Thank you, that was the question I had.
Good question.
I was just curious, I wanted to know how we fell in the pecking order, since we don't use the services a lot, I was just curious,
I
but
think it was somewhat, it's population based.
that was my question.
Well, that's kind of like the goal, was to try to make it, so a long time ago, some of you may be aware, is in 2015, they did a big study with Dr. Robert Marbut, who came in, and he created this formula based on population and level of poverty. So those are the two factors, and then that's how they came up with the amount of money that each community should contribute. I don't know if 20,000 is actually what he came up for you all, or whatever, but that's sort of how that got started, with people giving these different amounts.
And my last comment is, I want to applaud Roseanne for taking money out of her own pocket to help with your
Yes, Roseanne.
organization.
I'm sorry?
Are we ready for a vote on this?
Yes, ma'am. Councilmember Frizzalone?
Yes.
Councilmember Bryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Politis?
Yes?
Councilmember, Vice Mayor Lindauer?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes. Thank you again for being here this evening.
Thank you.
And next, we're on to council remarks. So we will start at this end. Councilman Bryan, what do you have for us this evening?
I don't have anything.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor?
Yes, I got a copy of the Hometown News recently, and I know our mayor is too modest to let us know, so I'll let you know. What I read in there is, the headline is Volusia County officials provide vaccine updates. And in the third paragraph, it says, they're quoting Mayor Miller. And in the third paragraph, they say, the newly elected vice chair of the Volusia Elected Officials Roundtable. The mayor returned from her December. So our mayor was elected as the vice chair of the Volusia Elected Officials Roundtable, and I am so proud and happy to let everybody know about it, because she won't.
Appreciate it. I really do not have anything else right now. I think I said a lot of my say during the workshop and during this meeting, but I appreciate we have a very nice crowd here today. Please keep on coming. We want to give you all the information we can. I want to let you know we will have a city council meeting on February 9th, but if you can mark your calendar, we have a new county chair, Jeff Brower, and he will be here at Coffee with the Mayor upstairs on February 10th. At 10 o'clock a.m. So please come out and meet him and ask any questions that you have of him. Thank you.
I'd like to congratulate the mayor on her appointment, so congratulations to you, and I'd like to congratulate Rosanna for all the hard work that you do as well. So congratulations to both of you.
Councilman Politis.
I got two items.
Okay.
One is, since the workshop was an open or public thing, kudos to Rick Frizzalone and all the people that participated in getting the Treasure Island, and hopefully from my mouth to God's ears, to ultimately start construction and take care of that eyesore that we've all put up with for so many years. Your business savvy, your skill set obviously is a great asset, and so that's what's making changes. Obviously, we see that in the 25 townhome project as well. And I had a request from R.J. Longstreet Elementary's assistant principal to make a proclamation for a personal friend of mine who was Teacher of the Year, and he was a candidate for the representative in Florida for Volusia County. His name is Joseph Biggs, kindergarten teacher. And you prepared the proclamation. Sherry got it done. Jan gave it to me. I had it framed. We gave it to him on Friday at our local R.J. Longstreet Elementary. and the kids sang a song for him, the Joey Big song, hysterical. And so he wanted me to say thank you. He was just so humbled that the city council and the mayor and the city government was supporting his candidacy for Teacher of the Year.
Mayor, I'd like to make one comment.
Yes.
The legislature is going to be considering a bill to change, right now, the state preempts our ability to regulate smoking in parks and places like that. And I'd like for us to consider at the next council meeting, just passing a resolution saying we support the legislation to
Smoking in parks and where else, Council?
well, any regulation of smoking, but the cities that are upset about it and want to change are the ones that want to regulate on playgrounds and parks and have no smoking.
Okay. All right, so you want that added to the agenda?
Yeah, I'll advocate for it, but I think it would add weight if the whole council just passed a resolution.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, any other comments from council? If not, we're going to go on to audience comments, and Monica Paris, you're up first. Please state your name and address.
Sure.
Thank you.
My name is Monica Paris, and I live at 120 Seaspray Street, Daytona Beach, Florida, 32118. I want to take this opportunity to thank you all for making Daytona Beach Shores a really nice place to live. I'd also like to thank Mike Booker for getting back to me about my request about getting a crosswalk at Seaspray Street in A1A. Despite all of the previous recommendations from 2018, I believe that a crosswalk at A1A and Seaspray Street should take precedence. According to the Florida Department of Transportation, the annual average daily traffic in 2019 from Van Avenue to Boulevard Avenue on A1A was 15,400 cars. The 2020 report will be out in April of this year. For the past 3 years, the traffic has increased, and I believe that 2020 will show even more so. This is also a high multi-lane traffic area consisting of 5 traffic lanes, and not to mention, one of the corners on A1A and Seaspray Street is occupied by a Sunoco gas station, which probably has 200 plus vehicles coming in and out of their establishment daily. If a crosswalk is added there, I believe there's potential for frequent crossings which reinforce walkability and have the potential to fuel greater demand for the services provided on the west side of A1A and access to the beach on the east side of A1A. This crosswalk will increase safety and increase visibility to the neighboring businesses, which we should be wanting to do in Daytona Beach Shores. There's also 20 plus parking spots that's right on that corner that it's beside the Andronopolis Park, and they're not being utilized. I think they're not being utilized because there's no crosswalk to get to the beach access. You also have Papa's Plaza, which has Tres Leches, the new barbecue place that just opened, and I know that they have plenty of hotels, motels, and also condominiums across the street, and I think it should be more of a walking neighborhood. Because once people get in their cars, they drive out of Daytona Beach Shores. So by adding this crosswalk, I believe it will increase business, walkability, and safety. So I just hope that you consider putting the crosswalk at A1A and Seaspray. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. And normally I don't ask council to respond to this, but I know, Mike, you've checked in this, and I know we've had multiple traffic studies done. And again, Monica, thank you very much for coming this evening. We get requests for crosswalks, this location, this location, this location. And when we do traffic studies, I have 2 questions for you. The first one is, it seems like when they agree to do something, it's a destination across the street. So like when they put it in Florida Shores, that was the drive down there, riding bikes down there. The one, by Mel's, I know there's Oceans. So first of all, how much does a traffic study cost, and what do they look at? What are they looking at to make sure?
They look at 2 things. They look at vehicular counts and pedestrian counts, typically. And then sometimes that varies depending on when they actually do the counts. As you know, we have more pedestrians in town during peak weeks and things like that in wintertime than we would in summer. So yes, they take both into consideration. And the thing I think that the council has taken into consideration probably more often than not is what you mentioned earlier, that is there a destination on the other side of the street? For example, Florida Shores, ABC Liquors, Publix, where the fire trucks come out at public safety, those issues. And certainly, I mean, we can do a traffic count there. We can certainly look at, what the cost would be to do a basic pedestrian walk. I don't think it would be lit or anything like Publix. But, I think it's, council needs to prioritize, and when you guys do, we'll prioritize accordingly.
Okay, because I know we've had several requests for several different locations.
Yes.
So, okay, all right. I wanted to tell you that we normally don't answer it, but, I wanted to get his approval. Thank you.
I guess the short answer, Madam Mayor, is if three of you tell me to put in a crosswalk, if you can.
Thank you. Okay, and next, Sandy Cook?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Tonight I'm here my name's Sandy Cook. I'm from 3118 South Atlantic Avenue, the Realty Pro address. So it's a different address than I'm using. And so I'm here to introduce the owners. They're here with us tonight, Bill Navarra and Buzzy Porter. I'm hoping they'll come up and maybe say a few things about their company. 2 years ago, we started the economic development program, and Rick Frizzalone, he has been very instrumental. We didn't understand, or at least I did not understand, when we tried to get a large company like this to come across the bridge. Mm-hmm. So it came full circle for me this year when I looked at all of the sales from 2020, the real estate sales in the Daytona Beach MLS. There were 7,887 sales total for the whole area. Mm-hmm. In the Shores, we had 400. This is why it's tough to get a company like this across the bridge. So I'm asking everyone in this room to support this business, to come in and see us. We're having a ribbon cutting sometime. I don't know everything yet. So I'm hoping that everyone will come see us. But I wanted to give the owners of the new business a chance to talk about why they're number one.
Certainly, and is this the location next to Portofino, the new one that's, okay?
It is, and they've done an amazing job at remodeling. It used to look kind of like a 7-Eleven, so it looks really beautiful now.
All right, great. Yeah. And who do we have here?
Allowed to approach?
Yes.
If you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Buzzy Porter, one of the owners. I am born and raised in Volusia County. I want y'all to know I'm very excited to be in your city. Your city's beautiful. Probably one of the best in Volusia County, and I hate to say that being born and raised in Daytona, but we are jealous. We are excited to be here. We were the #1 in sales for Volusia and Flagler County last year with $495 million, and we just opened in 2008. So we hope to grow fast and excited to be here with you. Thank you for allowing me.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
How do you go behind that guy? But I will say, when Sandy Cook calls you up and says, I have a fantastic office, you should open up in Daytona Beach Shores, the first words came out of my mouth, we're in a COVID pandemic. Who would open an office right now? And she goes, you really should look at it. I said, Sandy, I'm gonna look at it if you're gonna come join us there. She goes, that's why I'm calling, dum-dum.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
Bill Navarra.
Okay.
Yep, one of the owners and broker of Realty Pros Assured. So the minute she said that, we drove right down there. We met with George. We didn't get offered pizza that time, but next time we did, and we signed a very long lease. So we're excited to expand our company into this area and expand having Sandy and her amazing team, Shannon, and Patty Lynn is one of our managers who is here today. She's going to manage this office and the Port Orange office, and we're very involved with the Port Orange Chamber. So this is just a no-brainer for us to really be involved in your community.
Great to have you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming up. Okay, so now we are going on to items for the next agenda, and I think we gave you a couple already, Sherry, and we're going to have that presentation from FPL. Okay. Any other items that we want to add on right now? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much for coming this evening, and the meeting's adjourned.